Welcome back to DAP Build. And today I'm continuing on, well, restarting something that I started before. So firstly, if you're new to the channel, I do invite you to like, subscribe and check the notification bell so you can keep up to date with everything going on. This space frame, yeah. So, if you didn't happen to watch last week's episode or any of the other prior ones, basically I'm trying to get this space frame lined up with the original bug chassis. The fun factor is that I had it all set up. It was bolted in, resting in place, and it was pretty much set to start having everything else attached. So the steering column here, or the entire front steering assembly itself, was bolted on last week, and there's a slight issue because there's an A-frame which goes underneath the main section here, which then of course connects to this front steering assembly. The problem is that I didn't have that installed when I set the drill holes for the top space frame here. So of course now I've put that in, everything's changed. All the holes are completely out of alignment. And of course, it means that I've got to start over and line this front section up first, and then go about correcting the rear. So looking straight down the guts here, everything looked perfectly fine, just kind of, resting pieces against it, but it is not 100% flush. There is actually a bit of offset there, so I need to correct that firstly. When you look along the actual tracks, mostly again, because I've worked on one side primarily, the holes are just completely out of alignment. There's at least a ½ an inch in between the drill holes now in some points to the holes actually drilled on the metal. The opposing side's kind of in situ because when I put that on there, the bolt holes were still in there, so I kind of pulled it in one direction. So what I need to do now is re-measure the entire thing from inside to outside, front to back once more, make sure everything is in alignment, make sure that this is actually made it up so that it won't actually go anywhere, and that way when I actually do bolt it properly in place, it is 100% perfect and there's no problems. It's just a nightmare in between. There is one other issue right in here where this particular point does not line up with the rest of them. So what I think I need to do is actually remove these outside two first, loosen those ones off, put this one in first because this actually has only one hole drilled. These ones kind of have 2 or 3 larger tapered ones. So put this one in, put these 2 in, hopefully then it should all line up nicely. And then I can actually go about setting everything else up. There is also a bolt which I need to completely dismantle the side inner section of the A-frame in order to redo the nut because the nut has become loose inside the chamber. So I've got to cut that completely open, re-weld the nut, or get a new nut, re-weld that in, or weld that in, and then I can actually properly reassemble that. So there's a few steps involved here. I do quite enjoy the sit down after doing all that. My arm is absolutely killing me again. Real problem with that muscle. Anyways, it's bolted up. It mostly aligns, and partly down to me, of course, not accounting for the flex in the metal with those reinforcement bars. But the main thing is now, everything bolts up. Kind of. I still haven't done this front piece yet, and I don't really know how to approach it in the easiest way. I probably will just grab the existing one and just bolt it up, but the problem is it uses all 4 bolts to actually sandwich itself to the front. So to take those off, I've then got to somehow support this to the chassis at the same time. I've just got to feed that one out first before I sandwich that on. I'm really just have to think of a better idea for that one. It's a bit of a hassle, but anyway, that'll come later. However, there is now a new issue, which is more or less just me having to grind some bolts down, which, if you have a look here, yeah, there's a bit too much thread. So I've more or less got to line up the very bottom of the nut and then just chop it off flush so that there isn't actually any protruding through. I could more or less try and find some bolts that are that long, but I already bought all the bolts for this. I'm not going to buy more just for that situation, so I am simply going to chop them down. Should be fine. Just got to clean the threads up and make sure it's all good. I did happen to somehow really badly damage one of the bolt threads, so I might have to actually buy a replacement. However, I'm going to try and chop that one down for one of the fronts. Fingers crossed that works. There is still a bit more give, which I've got to account for, which of course is 2 things actually. Number 1 being the membrane that'll go in between the chassis and then the space frame. Then there's also another membrane which will then go on top of the space frame, which will then sandwich down the actual tub. So there is still a fair bit of give there, so I don't really want to chop down those bolts just yet, because if I chop too much off, then the nylock's not going to go all the way through. I do also have some split washers to go along with. Even though they are nylocks, just for peace of mind, I really just want to secure it 100%. So there is of course some split washers to go along. I swear I said split nuts before. Oh well. So anyway, yeah, I'm just going to actually now bolt everything together after I've actually got everything else on top. So I still can't really finish this chassis off 100%, but I am 75% closer than what I was before. That's the main thing. So this timber now really isn't doing a lot, I don't think. I could probably remove those out of the way and it should now support itself, because all of that is bolted up and it does have those rest points at the front. I'm still tossing up whether or not I want to weld those in. I don't really know. Happy to take some opinions. So if you reckon it's not a bad idea to actually weld them in, let me know and I'll definitely consider it. Otherwise, I am simply going to weld some caps in to the actual ends of the tube so that no water can actually stay inside and of course rust out internally. So that's one thing more I have to do. Hopefully this rain isn't sounding up too bad. Otherwise now, the space frame's on. That's all lined up for the most part. There's still a few bits of shimming I need to do, and of course I've got to now fix this A-frame, which I can do that easily enough. But then there is the elongated holes which support that A-frame onto here, but I'll just meld that later on down the track. Again, when everything's kind of nipped up, maybe when the tub's on as well. So I know this all fits now, and where I have everything, it's mostly right, for the most part. So that's more or less it for now. I have finally got to a point where I've wanted to be for a really long time, and having it look like a buggy again. I think honestly now I'm going to perhaps stick the steering wheel on and line that up, because I know now this top section is good once I've actually measured out exactly where that top piece needs to be, and then I'll figure that out. So that'll be for next week, and there is a bit of news coming up with next week's episode, so stay tuned for that, and it's not great, put it that way, but yeah, we'll persevere. Long story short, I just hope I can finish this car in time. We'll leave it at that. Anyway guys, thank you very much for joining me. As always, like, subscribe, comment below, etc. This has been Dat Build. Now, get back to your build. Until next time guys, cheers.